Hi everyone. Hi.
Hey.
Welcome to our Lunch and Learn. Today I'm going to take that big picture off. I just want to let you know that this is what we were going to be talking about today. Recognizing neurodiversity. Let me see if I can go back to the normal view.
There we are.
Kia
ora, everybody.
Hi. Welcome.
So we're Remarkable Minds. I'm Vanessa.
I'm Becky.
And we're really passionate about neurodiversity. We're neurodiversity specialists here in Tamaki Makaurau. And today we really wanted to talk to you about how to recognise neurodiversity in the workplace.
Yeah, so it's we believe it's really important to be able to recognise neurodiversity because a lot of time it is hidden. A lot of time it's not really obvious when someone's neurodiverse, but there are a few things that you can look out for that will help you to recognise it, because once you can recognise it, you can support it and you can do something about it and you can understand the challenges. So we're all about creating that understanding between neurodiverse and neurotypical people so that we can all work well together.
And I think, one of the key points that we always talk about is we're really passionate about supporting the whole person, not just a diagnosis. So, it is about recognising the person in front of you.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say thank you for taking time out of your day today to come and find out a little bit more about neurodiversity, because the thing is, you really can make a difference. And by increasing your awareness, you will make a difference in the lives of neurodiverse people around you, both at work and at home. And we're so passionate about changing the lives of neurodiverse individuals that we'd just like to say thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking the time out to come here and increase your knowledge a little bit. Hopefully we can share some insights with you today that you can take out into the real world and put into practice. So the first thing that we wanted to just sort of touch on was our use of terminology. We actually use the word neurodiversity, and we use that word because it's our preference. Vanessa is the neurodiverse person in our team. I'm neurotypical, and it's Vanessa's preference to use the term neurodiversity. And so that's what we do. A lot of other people do use the term neurodivergent.
Yeah, they do.
That's perfectly okay as well. But it's just to be aware that we use the term neurodiversity.
But it doesn't really matter what term you use. What we're talking about is a cognitive difference. There is actually a different way of processing information and, in fact, the world around you when you're neurodiverse. And that most neurodiverse or neurodivergent people are predominantly visual processors. So they have very strong visualization skills, 3D conceptualization, creativity, imagination. And that's in the visual areas of your brain. But what that means is sometimes we can find things really challenging that neurotypical people just think are really simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Those simple little things that you say, oh, just need to do this, or just need to do that. When you're a neurodiverse person, it's not as simple as just doing it. It can be more complicated than that. But it's really important to know that neurodiversity doesn't just affect reading and writing and focus. And these are the things that traditionally we believe, or the society, we believe that these are the things that neurodiversity affects. It actually affects every area of your life. And the consequences of being neurodiverse and not being understood, and people not really knowing that it affects every area of your life, just thinking that, they might have a challenge with reading and writing, is huge. It's an enormous thing, isn't it?
It is. And I think the thing is, trying to hide your neurodiversity leads to a lot of stress, especially in the workplace. And the thing is, estimates are that around 20% of the population are neurodiverse. So you are probably interacting with people who are neurodiverse around you every day. You might just not know it. And even they themselves might not be aware of their own neurodiversity.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people get through school, don't they? And whatever, in higher education without even realizing that they're neurodiverse. So, and we are finding that more and more people are coming to a diagnosis later in life. So, yeah. We've actually already touched on the fact that the neurodiverse brain is physiologically different from the neurotypical brain. It's not a choice or a preference. It really is a physiological difference. It's not just about spelling a few words wrong or sometimes being a bit late. It's actually much more than that. It goes much deeper than that. Neurodiversity is a consistent way of processing information and the world around you that comes with challenges and talents. So that ADHD colleague that you might have that's being a little bit annoying or can't focus or keeps distracting you all of the time, they're not doing that on purpose, hey? And that teammate that's always late or always running behind, they're not doing that on purpose either. There's, it's not a choice.
And, today our topic is, so how do you recognize neurodiversity? And I think, lots of people that we talk to, there's a fear around talking about neurodiversity.
Absolutely.
It's quite a big topic. There's lots of terminology. So today we just wanted to give you some things that you can look out for that might be an indication that someone is neurodiverse. And it's different from, are they a little bit rubbish at time management and not replying to their emails, or is there something else going on? And I think the first thing I would say is consistency. And how often is this person experiencing those challenges? Is it just when they're a bit overloaded and they're a bit stressed and they've got a massive project on? Is that maybe when their time management slips a little bit or they're not very good at replying? Or is this something that is consistently happening all the time, irrespective of what's going on in their life or their workload? So, consistency, are these symptoms or challenges there consistently?
Absolutely. And then secondly, the next thing that you can really look at is the impact of the challenges that they're experiencing. There's not always that easy to see. Sometimes it might be a bit tricky to spot, but if you really look for it, you can find it. If they're consistently behaving in a way that doesn't align with those standard expectations, it actually has a huge impact on the life of the neurodiverse person. It affects their confidence and their self-esteem, and actually often their ability to perform in their work. So this really is a key indicator. You might find that you've got a bright, really capable member of staff that you think could do so much more, but maybe they're just not performing as you think they should be performing. And maybe they're not putting themselves forward for opportunities. Maybe you think, oh, they'd be perfect for that role or perfect for that promotion, but they would not think to put themselves forward. Or even if you suggested it, they might think, oh, I don't know if I can do that. So, are they consistently inconsistent? Are they always getting things wrong, making mistakes, sometimes really good at things, sometimes really not good at things?
And another thing that we would say to look out for is, how does that person react when they make a mistake? I think this is something that's really key to be observant about, because often neurodiverse individuals are terrified of making a mistake. And then if they make a mistake, they don't respond to it very well. And, I know in my working career, if I made a mistake, it felt like, oh, that's it, I'm terrible at the job. It was really stressful. And I think so often we're encouraged to see mistakes as a way to learn, so, okay, I made a mistake, just do something differently next time and move on. And this is one of the difference you'll see with a neurodiverse person, is they will really dwell on that mistake. They'll keep revisiting it and they'll get really stressed about it. They won't just be able to move on so easily.
You can't just brush it off and say, oh, well, I made a mistake. I'll do it better next time. It's that constant mulling it over and constantly thinking about it and reliving that experience. And it can take a really big toll on people's lives. It can be very damaging. And so if they're not really open to talking about their mistakes, if when you sort of approach them about making a mistake, that you feel a resistance to that, that could be a sign that someone's neurodiverse. So that's something to look out for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they might get defensive. That's often something we see, and there is rejection sensitivity dysmorphia.
Yes, well done.
Which is a big part of any neurodiversity. It's particularly associated with ADHD and autism. But, it really is that fear of actually owning up to and talking about something that hasn't gone well. And I think the thing is, what you can't underestimate is the accumulation of having made mistakes or being told that they've got things wrong time after time after time. They would have gone through that at school. They've probably gone through that in education, and now they're in the workplace. And I think the thing is that creates a real negative impact on that person. And, there is a statistic that was recently shared.
I can't remember where we got it from.
But they were saying that around 65% of dyslexic adults actually have PTSD from their school experiences. And I know I've seen that in my clients that I work with on one-to-one, lawyers, engineers, builders, their school experience was really traumatic because they were made to feel stupid. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And so if you can keep that past trauma in mind and just kind of like expect that it's there, don't brush it off as something that, well, I'm sure they've been fine. Expect that it's there. It's actually really, really respectful to be mindful of the impact that neurodiversity has on people's lives. Excuse me, to swallow. It's so much more than you can imagine. The shame and the fear and the masking. That it's just so complicated for a neurodiverse person. So, not saying things like, "Oh, I'm so dyslexic" when you make a mistake, or "Everyone's a bit ADHD." These flippant comments that we make around people's neurodiversity actually can be really, really diminishing of that trauma experience that so many neurodiverse people have had in their lives.
And I think the thing is, spotting neurodiversity in the workplace can be really difficult. Neurodiverse neurodiverse individuals are the masters of disguise. We have years and years of learning to hide our challenges and hide our struggles. And the thing is, though, it takes us so much mental and emotional energy to appear that we're operating in a neurotypical environment in the way that's expected of us, when our brain actually processes information in a completely different way. It is really exhausting. So you might see a few things because of that. So we're just going to share a slide now.
Hold on. There we go.
So these are some of the things that you might see. Now, we've already touched on this is consistently, okay? We're not just talking about every now and then. We're talking about these being more consistent behaviours. So you might see changeable mood. Their mood might change really quickly. Defensiveness, as we've talked about, are they open to receiving, input or criticism, even if it's good kind of critical observations? Overwhelm, you will often see them in a state of overwhelm. Being argumentative, this is a trait or a behaviour that people will adopt as a way of being able to get themselves out of situations. Or you might see them being unnaturally quiet. They might really try and fly under the radar and not draw any attention to themselves.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, just having a few technology things going on there, just a few buttons to press all at the same time. So some other ways that you might see neurodiversity is actually as well through those things that we've just been talking about, which is sometimes that's like the personal reaction side of things, how people are emotionally interacting with their workspace. But there are actually some practical struggles that you might be seeing as well. And so we're going to touch on some of those now. You might see struggles with diary management, but consistently. It's not like, just every now and then putting a meeting in the wrong place. It's consistently not being able to manage their diary effectively. And we touched on that on our last Lunch and Learn about time management. So if you want to go back and learn a little bit more about that, that's there for you. More often than not, they are either very early or very late. So, not often on time, but, really trying hard to get there early, or they just can't manage it and they get there late. They might always be asking for extensions on their work, always struggling to get it done. Or they might work really late just before a project or a task is due so that they can get it done, so that they can get it finished. They might actually struggle to take part in meetings effectively. Either they'll be talking too much because they need to see that big picture and they need to really understand what's going on, all the detail of what's going on, or not speaking at all, just keeping really, really quiet, keeping themselves to themselves and not wanting to put their head above the parapet and speak in a meeting. And finally, we've got finding it hard to reply to emails or to extract the relevant information from communication. So, again, in our last Lunch and Learn, we talked a lot about emails and how overwhelming they can be, and how those long email chains can be very difficult. And it can be very, very hard for someone that's struggling with the overwhelm to actually be able to read emails in enough detail to pull the information out that they need, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a thing to be aware of is that we are seeing many more adults gaining a diagnosis or becoming aware of their own neurodiversity now. And that's actually happening because their children are getting diagnosed as neurodiverse. So, our awareness of the different types of neurodiversity has increased incredibly in the last 20 and 30 years. And actually now, it is being picked up in primary school. It is being picked up a lot earlier.
It is, yeah.
And I think the thing is, many parents are now getting their children assessed or tested or really looking into that neurodiversity. And the thing is, studies show us that neurodiversity is hereditary. So what we're seeing happening is that, adults are finding out about their own neurodiversity by their children getting diagnosed. I know certainly that was my story. I had no idea I was as dyslexic until my son was diagnosed as dyslexic, and I started learning more about it. And then it was like all these little pennies were dropping. It was like, but I do that. So if you're talking to your colleagues, if you're talking to someone in your team, and they are shared with you about their journey for their child, then that's a little signal, isn't it?
It is. And we do experience that a lot. We do find a lot, and the work that we do, the workshops that we run as well, we often get people who say, my son's just had a diagnosis of dyslexia, and I've realized that I suffered some of the same challenges, or I still struggle with some of the same challenges. So it really is something that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it, as we say,
Certainly doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So here we've got now coming up another little slide, which is talking a little bit about diagnosis. So you don't actually need to have a diagnosis to know that you're neurodiverse. 77% of people who think they're neurodiverse are neurodiverse. So if someone tells you they're neurodiverse, just believe them. I mean, you might think, I think in our modern society, we're often trained to believe that people sometimes use neurodiversity as an excuse. It's like, oh, you're saying that because you're always late, or you're saying that because you're always, disorganized or whatever. But actually that's not true. Usually it is the case that if someone believes that they're neurodiverse, they actually are neurodiverse. And so it really is on us as neurotypical people, and I put myself in that bracket as well, to believe someone when they tell us that they're neurodiverse.
And I think, the thing is, the diagnosis process is actually quite expensive, and it's actually really, it really affects your own self-esteem, because it's making you go back to skills that maybe you found challenging. So, a formal diagnosis, you don't need to have one of those to be aware of your neurodiversity.
Yeah, absolutely. And we often do find, don't we, that people that get a diagnosis in later life can find it quite a traumatic experience. It can be quite a difficult experience to go back and relive that negative experience of school or your young life, and it can come along with a lot of regret. So there's a lot more to it than just saying, oh, you just need to get a diagnosis. You know, it's a more complicated process than you think.
Yeah. And what I would say is, one of the things that we've learned in the work that we do, talking to, coaching individuals and coaching teams, is, how do you talk about neurodiversity? And I think our biggest piece of advice would be, don't tell someone you think, I think you're dyslexic. Don't tell someone, have you ever thought you're ADHD? Because, as a manager or a colleague, you might think, this will help them, we'll be able to get to the bottom of these challenges, but you don't know where that person is on their own journey. So really, it's not a good idea to kind of put that in front of someone unless they're really ready to start talking about it first.
That's so true. That's so true. It's such a personal experience, neurodiversity, isn't it? And just because you as a neurotypical person can see that someone might have some neurodiversity, it's not on us to tell them. It's on us to support them to find that out for themselves, I think. So you can do that by discussing the struggles that they're experiencing and how you might be able to support them. That's a far more positive way to start talking about neurodiversity. I've noticed that you might struggle to get things in on time. How can we support you to be able to do that in a more efficient way that's going to work for all of us, in that gentle, supportive way, rather than offering them a diagnosis.
And I think, things like always being late for a meeting, just talk to them about it in that gentle, confrontational way.
Non-confrontational.
Non-confrontational.
Don't do it in a confrontational way.
There's my dyslexia. In a non-confrontational way. It's about supporting that person to be better, because if that's going to help them feel okay about themselves, then they will be more inclined to open up about their neurodiversity.
Absolutely.
And I think the one thing we'd really like to share is it's about considering the person who's in front of you and not just the label or the neurodiversity or the behaviour. Because I think the thing is, sometimes we do get very stuck on, oh my God, but they never get their reports in on time. I'm always having to chase them, and it's about kind of like looking behind that behavior, because there is a cause, and that person isn't trying to be difficult. That person isn't able to manage their time in the same way that someone who is neurotypical. They really don't have the same ability to do that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of looking at the person, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
And engaging with that whole person, not just the behavior or the neurodiversity.
Yeah, and what I would also say is that if someone's struggling with time management, they'll be really good at something else. So, it doesn't really matter. It's like finding ways to support people with the struggles that they have, whilst allowing them to be amazing at the things that they're amazing at. I just think there's so much more to the world than the diary, and I think, just let it go. If it's something that someone's not good at, let it go. Let somebody else do it for them. Get them the right support in place so that they can manage it effectively. Because by layering that stress on top of people, you don't allow them to access their natural, amazing talents and just be who they are, because they're having to deal with the stress and the anxiety all the time.
And I think it's a really, they've actually hit on a really good point there, Becky, is that they will be really bad, probably, at some of these simple things. Yeah. But that is actually a way to notice neurodiversity, is if they're really amazing at other things. So I know took me a long time to realize this, but I'm the ideas person. So I will come up with lots and lots and lots and lots of ideas. And I used to feel like an absolute failure, both at home and in life, because I could never get my ideas finished or even started. It was only after realizing I was neurodiverse, I was like, oh, that's why I have so many ideas, and that's why I don't actually put them in place. So if you are seeing strengths in one area, but then like weaknesses down here, then that's another indication that there could be something going on.
Absolutely. And then our last slide talks a little bit about having difficult conversations, because it is inevitable that if you are working with neurodiverse people, you are going to have some sensitive or difficult conversations, because, you can't just give feedback in the same way that you would to someone that's neurotypical. It does have to be done in a different way. You have to maintain that non-confrontational approach. Just saying, oh, you did that really badly, that's going to cause so much trauma for a neurodiverse person.
Well, why did you do it like that?
And then what happens then? It just causes them to shut down, and then they don't try, or then they don't have another go, or then they're sort of afraid of trying again. So we really have to remove the judgment. So just stop judging their behavior and try to understand it instead. And we can really recommend creating a level playing field by using visual communication tools. We use a system called CCS cards, which are really amazing communication cards. They're a deck of cards that are just images. There's a few words in there. And you can really open up great conversations by using a visual communication tool. Because as we touched on earlier, the neurodiverse brain, most of the time, is a visual brain. And so if you can allow that visual brain to just be free and tap into imagery rather than words, you'll get so much more out of it.
Yeah, you will. It's actually a really amazing way of communicating. And I think it will also put that neurodiverse individual more at ease. And that's a big part of it. You know, don't forget, I think 97% of people who are dyslexic don't want to disclose that at work, because of the fear of negative a reaction.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is about how to recognize neurodiversity. And I hope, you know, that we've kind of helped you maybe look at it from a different perspective and kind of look around some of the behaviors. You know, dyslexia isn't just about reading, writing, and spelling. ADHD isn't just about not being able to focus and fidgeting. And that person is putting themselves under so much stress and pressure to try and perform in this expected way.
Absolutely. And that's something that we're really passionate about, isn't it? It's sort of like almost unmasking these challenges so that we can really allow people to be themselves in the workplace. We can really allow people to just slough off all of that stress and anxiety around having to hide who they really are and having to hide the challenges they're experiencing to fit into the neurotypical world and just be themselves, you know. And it's just really important to us to do that. We've both got neurodiverse kids, and so we really want to create a world where they can go into the workplace feeling like they know that they'll be understood and they'll be able to be themselves.
And there was a great post on LinkedIn the other day about talking about how neurotypical people expect neurodiverse people to unmask. And that means we have to do all the work. So what I would say is, if you're neurotypical, it's not just about us unmasking, it's also about the neurotypical people learning how to interact with, you know, how to support someone who's neurodiverse. And that's really where you get the best combination.
Absolutely.
Is, you know, don't put it all on the neurodiverse individual to do the work. Increase your own awareness.
And talking of that, I've got a little banner that tells you that we're running our Neurodiversity Corridor on the 11th. Sorry that there isn't the right accent on the word. I couldn't do it in StreamYard. It's on the 11th of September at 11:30 a.m. and it's $55 plus GST per person. It's a 60-minute session where we're going to really dive into neurodiversity, what it is, what it really looks like, what it feels like, the experience, and what you can do about it as well. You know, what you can, there's some real easy actions that you can take to be able to create a more neuro-inclusive environment, because that's what we're all about, is creating that environment for our wonderful neurodiverse community. So if you'd like to join us on that, you'll find the link to book a place on our page. I think it's on my page, your page, and our Remarkable Minds page, I think. So you'll find it somewhere
don't
there.
Ask me. I'm the dyslexic one. I have no idea where the link is.
Anyway, we're running it. I'm sure you'll find it somewhere, and we'd love to see you there. As I say, it's a little bit of a longer session where we're going to be giving you a lot more information that will be really helpful to you in your workplace and in your life. So we'd love to see you there. So I think we're done. I think we've done our little half an hour. It's been lovely to see you there. They've got a little comment. Thank you very much, Louise. Genuinely have increased too much to allow tapping his talent and supportive struggles. Yes.
Oh, thank you,
Thank
Louise.
you. Thank you. That's what we're all about. It is possible. You know, we run our organisation with neurotypical and neurodiverse working together, and it works really well. We're not going to lie. We have our struggles. We have our moments where Vanessa puts things in the diary in the wrong place, but that's okay. We know why, and it's all good. We can manage it. You know, and I have my times when I'm like super rigid, and Vanessa has to bring me out of that. So, you know, it really does work. It really does work if you can harness the talents of both together. Yeah. And that's what we really want to create. It's workplaces where everyone can be themselves and everyone can thrive. Yeah,
absolutely. So thank you so much. And thank you for those people giving us comments. It's quite strange doing this without really being able to see anybody. So
all we can see is ourselves, which is quite off-putting.
So I'm really glad you guys enjoyed it. Always reach out to us on LinkedIn, or you can email us at hello@Remarkable Minds if you have any questions.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next month.
Yeah, we'll see you next month. I think we're going to be talking about technology next month. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.